on nights touched by winter's quiet breath. When the world slows down beneath the gentle weight of drifting snow, there is a particular stillness that feels as if it belongs only to Christmas. A softness that seems to cradle every thought, every breath, every small wish resting quietly in the heart. And tonight, as you lie here letting the last lights of the day fade away, I want to guide you into that peaceful space where the hush of evening gathers around you like a warm blanket, where the shadows stretch long and patient, and where every sound grows softer until all that remains is the calm rhythm of your breathing. Christmas has always been more than a holiday, more than flickering lights or ribbons tied with care, more than songs drifting down familiar streets. Because at its core, Christmas is a moment of pause, a gentle turning inward, an invitation to listen to the quiet places inside yourself, where warmth settles even in the coldest season, and where hope glows like a small lantern in the snow, steady and unwavering. Perhaps you remember the first time you felt Christmas not as celebration, but as presence. Something that moved slowly through the air. Something that didn't ask for anything grand. Only your attention, your stillness, your willingness to feel the softness it brought. And now, as the night deepens around you, it invites you once more to rest, to release the tension you have carried through the day, to let your mind drift the way snowflakes drift, light, unhurried, peaceful. You may hear faint echoes of distant bells, or imagine the glow of warm windows shining through the cold. You may picture the hush of a sleeping village where each home is wrapped in quiet, or the gentle silhouette of a tree standing tall in the dark, its lights like stars drawn close to earth. And in this simple imagery, something within you loosens, breathes, softens, because Christmas, in its truest form, is a story of tenderness, a reminder that even in darkness, light appears quietly, that comfort can find you in the smallest moments, that rest is not a luxury, but a gift that belongs to you. Tonight, I offer you this calm, steady voice as a companion through the quiet, guiding you gently toward the dreams waiting on the other side of wakefulness, letting each word fall slowly into place like snow settling onto untouched ground, letting the rhythm ease you into deeper stillness. Before we wander into the 10 stories that follow, stories woven with starlight, soft winds, candle warmth, snow-cradled paths, and gentle hearts, I want you to feel grounded, as if you were sitting beside a winter window, watching the world blur softly beyond the glass, feeling only warmth within. Christmas nights always hold a sense of magic, but not the loud kind. Not the kind that sparkles and dances in bright displays, no. The magic we speak of tonight is quieter, slower, like a soft exhale after a long day, like a gentle reassurance that everything can wait. Until morning, that rest is allowed, that peace is possible. And as this calm begins to settle around you, I want you to sense how the night carries you without effort, how it lifts the weight from your thoughts, how it slows the world to a pace that soothes rather than demands. You do not need to rush. You do not need to hold anything tightly. Simply let the softness spread. Let it move through your chest, your shoulders, your hands, until your entire body feels as if it is being held in a quiet embrace. In this embrace, the meaning of Christmas reveals itself, not as a single story, but as many small moments woven together. A warm cup shared in silence, gentle footsteps in fresh snow, the glow of a candle flickering in a dark room, the whisper of gratitude felt without words, and the simple truth that even the smallest light can guide you through the night. And so, before the stories begin, allow yourself to drift to that inner place where dreams rise slowly and quietly, where your breath deepens, where your heart eases into a slower rhythm. Because each of the tales ahead will meet you there, carrying the same warmth, the same calm, the same softness meant to help you rest, meant to lead you through a night wrapped in peace. Tonight is a journey through quiet wonder, and all you have to do is listen, breathe, and let yourself be carried gently forward into the first story. The night settles softly above the winter sky, carrying a calm that drifts like a slow breath through the cold air. And in that stillness, where snow gathers in gentle layers across quiet rooftops and distant hills, a small star named Lumi begins its quiet journey across the heavens, moving not with the confidence of brighter stars that hold their places firmly in familiar constellations, but with a hesitant glow that flickers like a question waiting to be answered. Lumi had not meant to drift away from its constellation. Yet one night, when the wind of the cosmos shifted in a strange, tender way, the little star felt itself pulled from its home and cast into a part of the sky where patterns disappeared and the warmth of nearby stars faded, leaving it surrounded by a deep, vast darkness that seemed to stretch without end. And in that darkness, Lumi felt a quiet ache, a longing for something familiar, a place to belong. For many nights, the little star wandered through the sky, drifting past trails of stardust and old constellations whose shapes it did not recognize. And with each passing moment, Lumi's glow dimmed just a little. Not because it lacked light, but because being lost weighed on it in a way nothing ever had before. And the sky, though beautiful, felt overwhelmingly large when one did not know where one's home was. Yet even as Lumi drifted through that endless expanse, the night remained gentle, watching over the small star with a patience that did not demand hurry or certainty, holding Lumi the way a quiet hand holds a trembling thought. Steady and warm, the nights passed. Lumi sometimes found itself above quiet forests or snowy villages, where the world below glowed softly with firelight and lanterns. And the star would pause, letting its faint light fall gently over the earth, imagining what it might feel like to rest somewhere safe and known, the way the warm lights below seemed to rest inside windows and hearts. But soon the sky would call again, vast and open, and Lumi would drift on, hoping that somewhere ahead, some forgotten sparkle or distant memory might help guide it home. One night, as Christmas approached and the world below began to glow a little brighter with each passing evening, something new appeared in the sky. Not dazzling or loud, but soft and warm. A hum made of distant voices, singing songs filled with hope and tenderness. Songs carried by the quiet breath of winter winds rising from the earth. The sound drifted upward like a warm ribbon of light, folding through the cold air until it touched Lumi's faint glow. And the little star felt something stir inside it. Something gentle. Something that felt like recognition. Lumi paused in the sky, letting the sound wrap around it, letting the warmth seep into every corner of its dimming glow. And as the songs continued to rise into the night, songs of peace, of longing, of home, the small star felt a pull, not harsh or sudden, but soft and sure. Like the touch of a guiding hand, the melodies reminded Lumi of its constellation, of the quiet hum that had always held the stars together. And though the sound from Earth was different, there was something in its warmth that made Lumi feel less alone, less lost, as though the night itself whispered that even wandering had meaning. Slowly, Lumi followed the direction from which the melody rose, drifting through patches of dark sky that no longer felt so frightening, passing constellations whose shapes it now began to recognize in faint outlines, like memories being remembered from long ago. The closer Lumi drifted, the warmer the sky felt, and the little star's glow grew steadier, brighter, as if the music awakened something that had always lived inside it, waiting to be called home. And then, in one quiet moment, the darkness parted, revealing a familiar cluster of stars shining softly in the distance. Lumi's constellation, waiting like old friends who had kept a light burning in the window, trusting that the one who had wandered would find its way back when the time was right. Lumi floated toward them slowly, savoring each small step of the journey, letting its glow brighten with each breath of calm the night offered. And when the little star slipped back into its place among them, the constellation shimmered with a gentle brilliance, not loud or grand, but full of relief and welcome, as though the sky itself exhaled. That night, the stars glowed just a little warmer, not because Lumi had returned brighter than before, but because it had returned at all, carrying with it the quiet truth that even those who drift, who lose their way, who wander through the vastness of uncertainty, can still find the warmth of belonging again. And now, as Lumi's soft light drifts down toward you, settling above your thoughts with the same steady calm that guided it home, you may feel a gentle warmth rise within you, reminding you that your own wandering moments do not define you, that even when the world feels too quiet or too wide, there is always a way back to a place that feels like home, a place that waits with patience and light. And as the night rests around you, letting each breath slow, Lumi's glow lingers near your thoughts like a soft promise whispered into the dark, telling you that you, too, will always find your way, no matter how far you feel from where you wish to be, and that every step you take, even the uncertain ones, carries you closer to a peace that has been waiting for you all along. At the quiet edge of a deep winter forest, where the snow gathers in soft layers and the wind moves with a slow, peaceful rhythm, a small pine tree stood year after year, watching the world around it with a gentle longing that never turned into complaint, because the little tree had always dreamed of being chosen, not because it believed it was grand or beautiful, but because somewhere inside its tiny branches it carried a hope that one day someone would see it for what it was, simple and sincere. Each winter, families wandered into the forest with cheerful voices and warm breath rising into the cold air, searching for the perfect Christmas tree to bring home. And the little pine would lift its branches as high as they could reach, letting the snow shimmer on its needles like tiny stars. Yet each year, people walked past it, drawn to the tall and full trees whose branches spread wide like open arms, leaving the little tree in a quiet corner of the forest, surrounded by shadows and falling snow, feeling a tiny ache that settled inside its wooden heart. Not a sharp pain, but a soft sadness. The kind that comes from waiting too long without knowing whether waiting will ever lead to anything at all. Even so, the little tree never let its hope fade, because it had learned from the rhythm of the seasons that quiet patience did not mean being forgotten. And the forest itself seemed to reassure it through the gentle sway of taller trees, through the whisper of wind brushing against its small branches, through the soft warmth of sunlight that touched it even on the coldest mornings. The little pine believed, in the quiet way things in nature often do, that every heart, no matter how small, deserves its moment of being seen. And so it stayed where it was, growing a little each year, holding on to the dream that perhaps the next winter would be different. On the evening of Christmas Eve, when the sky above the forest glowed faintly with Lumi's soft starlight and the world seemed wrapped in a gentle hush, a small family wandered deeper into the woods than they had planned, their footsteps pressing delicate prints into the snow, their breath creating small clouds that drifted upward like slow exhalations of warmth. They were not truly searching for a tree that night, only taking a quiet walk together to feel the stillness of Christmas settle into their hearts. But as they approached the edge of a narrow clearing, the mother paused, touched lightly by a glimmer of light that flickered in the corner of her vision. The father followed her gaze, and the child peeked from behind their coats. And there, standing beneath a soft veil of falling snow, was the little pine tree, glowing not because it was grand, but because the snow on its branches caught Lumi's starlight in a way that made the tree seem to shimmer from within, gentle and soft. The family walked closer, their steps careful as if they feared disturbing something fragile. And when they reached the little tree, the child's eyes widened with a kind of wonder that only children seem to carry so purely. And she reached out a mittened hand to touch one of the snow-covered branches, the light in her eyes reflecting the brightness of the tiny flakes resting there. The father brushed away a bit of snow, revealing the soft green needles beneath, and he smiled, not because the tree was perfect, but because something in its quiet presence made him feel a warmth he had not expected, a feeling like finding something precious in a place he had never thought to look. With gentle hands, they lifted the little pine from the snow, whispering thanks into the winter air, as if the forest itself were listening. And they carried it back through the snowy path toward their home, where the windows glowed with warm candlelight and the scent of cinnamon drifted through the air. When they placed the tree beside the window, a gentle glow settled over it, and the mother tied a small red bow onto one of its branches, the fabric swaying softly in the warm air from the nearby fireplace. For the little tree, the bough was not merely decoration, but a sign that its patience had not been in vain, that its long nights under the cold winter sky had led it to this moment of warmth, of belonging. The little pine felt something open inside itself, a quiet joy that moved through its branches like a slow, glowing breath. And it understood something it had only hoped before, that miracles do not always arrive loudly or suddenly, but sometimes grow slowly, gently, over many seasons, waiting for the right moment to unfold. Now, as the night deepened and the stars shimmered softly above the snow-covered world, the little tree stood near the window, glowing with a calm pride, its tiny branches reflecting the soft light of the fireplace, shining not with the grandeur of tall forest trees, but with the simple warmth of being seen, chosen, and loved. And somewhere deep within its wooden heart, where dreams had once swirled uncertainly, a soft truth settled like falling snow. Miracles come to those who wait with hope quietly tucked inside them, and even the smallest light shines breathlessly bright when the world finally turns to notice. And as the story settles beside you, drifting softly into your thoughts, like a warm blanket placed gently over weary shoulders, you may feel the same quiet comfort the little tree felt, knowing that patience is not emptiness, and that your own small hopes, even the ones you whisper only to yourself, are gently making their way toward their moments of becoming real. Inside a small wooden cabin, resting quietly at the edge of a snow-covered field, there stood an old oil lamp that had lived through many winters, holding memories of gentle nights and long-forgotten whispers. And although the lamp spent most of the year resting silently on a narrow shelf beside the window, gathering dust like a soft, protective blanket, it waited patiently for the single night when it would once again be lit. The night when its flame would return to life with a warm, steady glow. This night, of course, was Christmas Eve. A night the lamp treasured more than any other. A night when the world outside softened, when the falling snow moved with a slower rhythm, and when the cold wind that swept across the open fields seemed to pause, as if listening to something only the quietest hearts could hear. The lamp had long understood that its purpose was not to burn brightly or boastfully, for its flame was small and gentle, never meant to illuminate the entire cabin, but meant instead to offer a warmth that touched quietly, the kind of warmth that eased the edge of winter's chill, that soothed the tiredness drifting through the room, and that made the night feel like a place one could rest without fear. And although the lamp sometimes wondered whether such a small light truly mattered, it always remembered the way the cabin seemed to breathe differently whenever its flame appeared, as though the house itself recognized the comfort that came from even the smallest glow. On this particular Christmas Eve, the cabin lay still beneath a blanket of snow, the wind brushing gently against the wooden walls. And inside, the family who lived there prepared for a night of simple celebration. Their footsteps soft on the worn floorboards, their voices low and warm as they moved around the room. The father reached up to the shelf where the old lamp waited, lifting it with tender hands, the way someone might lift a cherished memory. And the lamp felt a familiar stir of anticipation rise within its metal frame, as though the quiet heart beating inside it had awakened at last. When the father struck a match and touched the tiny flame to the wick, the lamp felt the warmth blossom slowly, like the first breath after a long sleep. And its flame rose with a soft, steady glow that pushed gently against the dimness of the cabin, not trying to conquer the dark, but simply offering a place where shadows could soften and hearts could rest. And as the flame grew, the wind outside the cabin shifted, its sharp whistle fading until it felt less like a warning and more like a sigh, as though even the cold air had paused to appreciate the warmth that now drifted through the wooden walls. The lamp glowed steadily, letting its light drift across the worn table where a few simple decorations had been placed, over the small wreath of pine branches tied with a thin ribbon, over the cookies cooling in the corner, filling the room with a sense of peace that felt deeper than words. And the lamp watched the family settle in, the mother pulling a thick blanket around the child, the father stirring a pot of warm milk, their movements slow and gentle as though matching the rhythm of the flame itself. The child, whose eyes reflected the glow of the lamp like tiny mirrors of warmth, looked at the flame with wonder, leaning close as if trying to understand the soft magic held within such a small light. And the lamp felt a quiet joy rise within it, because moments like these reminded it why it had waited all year for this night. Why a single flame, no matter how small, could carry a meaning that reached farther than the light itself. Outside, the winter wind brushed softly against the window, but instead of rattling the panes, as it often did, it seemed to slow, as if lulled by the gentle presence of the flame. And the lamp realized, as it had many times before, that warmth did not need to be loud or brilliant to make a difference. For even the coldest air paused when touched by the quiet honesty of light. The flame flickered softly, steady but alive, casting shadows that danced like sleeping thoughts on the walls. And the lamp felt itself pour every bit of warmth it could muster into the room. Wanting to wrap the family in the same comfort it felt deep within its frame. It had always believed that light meant more than brightness. That true warmth rested in the willingness to be present, to hold space for those who needed it. And tonight, as snow drifted like feathers across the dark sky, the lamp felt certain that its small role was enough. As the lamp continued to glow, its light seemed to weave a delicate thread through the quiet cabin, slipping between the spaces of the wooden walls, touching the corners where shadows rested, and settling gently over the family like a soft blanket made of warmth and calm. And the lamp felt the night lean closer, as though listening to the soft hum of comfort rising from its flame. The father sat near the window, watching the snowfall as it drifted downward in unhurried spirals. The mother smoothed the child's hair as the little one curled beneath the blanket, blinking slowly, the glow of the flame dancing in sleepy eyes that no longer fought against the weight of drowsiness. The lamp understood moments like this with an almost ancient tenderness, because it had seen countless winters pass, had watched laughter and quiet tears alike, had witnessed nights when the wind roared loudly against the house and nights like this one, when everything softened and the world seemed to remember how to rest. It knew that its light was not meant to chase away the dark forever, but simply to warm the space around it so that anyone nearby could breathe a little easier, settle a little deeper, and feel safe enough to surrender to sleep. Outside, the wind shifted again, not harshly, but with a gentle sweep, like a long exhale given by the winter sky itself. And the lamp could almost imagine the cold air bowing slightly, stepping back to allow the warmth inside the cabin to bloom without interruption. In that moment, the flame grew steadier, as though strengthened by the quiet gratitude drifting through the room, and its glow spread across the floorboards in a soft golden layer that made even the cold wood look welcoming. The child whispered something, not quite a word, more like the last thought before sleep, and the mother pressed a kiss to the child's forehead, her movements slow and thoughtful, guided by a tenderness that rose like warmth from the lamp's tiny flame. The father returned to the table, placing his hands around a warm mug, pausing for a moment as if savoring not just the drink, but the peace that filled the air, the peace that seemed to hum from every corner of the cabin. The lamp felt all these things, not in the way a living being might feel them, but in the way light feels shadows, in the way warmth feels cold, understanding not through thought, but through presence. And it felt a quiet pride knowing that its flame, though small, played a part in shaping the gentleness of the night. And as snow thickened outside, blurring the world in soft white strokes, the lamp realized that sometimes the world asked so little of one's light, just enough to soften the dark, not banish it, just enough to bring warmth, not brilliance, just enough to remind someone that they were not alone. Minutes drifted into hours, though neither the lamp nor the family seemed to notice, because time in the cabin moved differently when the lamp burned on Christmas Eve, stretching out in slow, peaceful threads that allowed the night to linger like a quiet companion. The flame danced softly, rising and falling with the rhythm of the house's breaths, and the lamp felt its warmth pouring outward, reaching even the distant corners of the room, where the shadows had grown so soft they seemed to sigh. Eventually the child fell fully asleep, breathing evenly beneath the blanket, and the mother leaned against the father with a tired but gentle smile, while the father placed a hand on hers, holding it loosely as though afraid to disturb the quiet gift the night had given them. The lamp watched over them with steady devotion, knowing that its flame needed no more purpose than this: to hold the room in warmth, to keep the cold at bay, to be the small, constant glow that allowed a weary family to rest without worry. Outside, the wind finally settled completely, leaving only the faint sound of snow touching the window panes. And the lamp thought, with a kind of soft certainty, that warmth had won the quiet argument between light and cold tonight, not through force, but through gentleness, through the calm persistence of a glow that never tried to be more than what it was. And as the night deepened and the world outside drifted farther into silence, the lamp continued to burn with its small, unwavering flame, understanding more clearly than ever that even the smallest light held meaning, that even a single flicker could change the way a room breathed, that sometimes all a tired heart needed was one warm moment to remember how to feel safe. And with that understanding resting inside its old metal frame, the lamp shone on, steady and serene, offering the same silent promise it had offered every Christmas Eve, that peace can be found in the gentlest light, and that even in the presence of winter's coldest winds, warmth will always find its way to those who wait for it with quiet hope. High above the winter sky, beyond the drifting layers of soft silver clouds that carry the quiet breath of December, there hung a small golden bell, resting gently on a strand of wind so thin and delicate that no human eye could ever see it. And yet the bell swayed with a calm certainty, as though it had always belonged to the heavens, waiting patiently for the single night each year when its purpose would awaken. This night, of course, was Christmas Eve. The night when the world below softened into stillness and the air filled with a hush so tender that even the stars seemed to lean closer to listen. The bell had hung there for countless winters, watching storms pass beneath it, watching snow roll across valleys, watching the glow of distant fires flicker in small mountain villages. And through all those seasons, it had remained silent, its golden surface reflecting only the moonlight and the faint shimmer of Lumi's star drifting across the sky. But on Christmas Eve, when the world quieted enough for even the smallest sound to matter, the bell would stir, its metal warming under the gentle hands of the night breeze, and a single, soft chime would rise from it like a breath of warm light, steady and delicate, drifting downward through the layers of clouds and into the waiting world below. The bell had always understood that its sound was not meant to be heard by the ears in the way ordinary noises were heard. Its chime traveled in a different way, moving through the air as if woven from the quietest strands of comfort, slipping through rooftops and windows, reaching the spaces where weary hearts curled into themselves, and settling gently beside those who needed rest the most. It knew that while no one might ever see it suspended above the clouds, its presence still mattered, its song still mattered, because sometimes the smallest gifts are the ones that move quietly, unnoticed, yet leave the deepest peace behind. On this Christmas Eve, the sky was especially calm, as though the entire world were holding its breath for something soft and sacred. The moon hung low, a pale lantern over the dark horizon, and the snow drifting on the winds above the clouds seemed to glow from within, carrying the shimmer of distant stars. The golden bell sensed the change in the air, the way the world settled into a slow heartbeat, and it felt itself warm with anticipation, knowing the moment of its song was drawing near. Below, the world unfolded in gentle scenes. A child being tucked beneath a thick quilt, their breathing slowing as sleep crept closer. An old man stirring a pot of tea, pausing to feel the quiet settle gently inside his small cabin. A woman standing by her window, watching the snow fall in soft waves that reminded her of her mother's lullabies. And far beyond these homes, in quiet forests and wide fields, animals curled into nests of warmth, finding rest in the hush that spread through the night. The bell watched all of this with an affection that felt almost like a heartbeat inside its metal frame. And when the moment finally came, the wind shifted gently, brushing against its golden surface with a tenderness that felt like an invitation. The bell swayed, only slightly, and then, with a soft movement that seemed almost dreamlike, it chimed. The sound was not loud, not bright, not sharp. It was a warm breath of tone that drifted outward like a ripple across a still lake, carrying with it a quiet warmth that slipped through the sky with ease. The chime spread over mountaintops, over forests, over rooftops covered in snow, and wherever it traveled, the night grew softer, as though the sound itself smoothed every rough edge, every tired thought, every lingering ache in the hearts of those who heard it, without knowing they had heard anything at all. The bell's chime entered bedrooms and resting places like a gentle hand brushing sleep across a furrowed brow. It settled at the foot of children's beds, curled itself into the blankets of those who had cried earlier in the day, and wrapped itself around the weary shoulders of adults who carried far too much in their minds. And though its song remained silent in the world of waking senses, each heart it touched felt the shift, the slow unwinding of tension, the softening of breath, the return of calm. The bell felt the night respond to its song, felt the slow ripple of peace move outward, as though the world itself sighed with relief, and it continued to sway gently, letting out another faint chime, then another, each one like a droplet of warm light falling onto the earth below. As the bell released its gentle chimes into the world, it felt something shift deep within the heart of the sky, as if the stars themselves leaned closer to listen, their shimmering light pulsing faintly in quiet harmony with the bell's soft song, and the clouds drifting beneath it seemed to glow with the faintest warmth, reflecting the calm that spread slowly across the earth. The bell continued to sway, its movement almost imperceptible. Yet each small motion allowed another whisper of sound to slip free, each chime carrying with it a soothing breath that encouraged heavy eyelids to close and restless minds to soften. Because the bell understood that rest was not something demanded, but something invited, something guided by kindness rather than force. Below, in the small houses nestled along snowy roads, the effect of the bell's unseen lullaby grew stronger with each passing moment. A young boy who had been tossing in his sleep finally relaxed, his tiny hands unclenching as the chime wrapped around him like a warm blanket. And a tired mother who had spent the day worrying found her breath deepening, her shoulders loosening, as though someone had whispered gently into her heart that she was allowed, at last, to rest. Even those who sat alone in quiet rooms, grown men with aching memories, elderly women with slow steps and long silences, felt the night change around them, felt something soft touch their thoughts, smoothing the sharp edges that had clung to them throughout the day. The bell watched the world respond, not through eyes, but through the tender resonance of its sound. The way peace traveled outward like ripples from a single drop of water falling into a still pond. And it felt an old, familiar warmth spread through its golden frame, a warmth that came from knowing that even the smallest sound could bring comfort, that even something no one could see could still offer rest to those who needed it most. every Christmas Eve. The bell remembered this truth, and every Christmas Eve it renewed its promise to be there, suspended above the clouds, even if only to give one soft note of calm to the world. As the night deepened, Lumi's star drifted higher, its glow brushing against the surface of the clouds, illuminating the bell in a pale silver wash, and the bell responded with another delicate chime, one so light that even the wind seemed to hold it carefully, carrying it downward with reverence. The sound traveled across lakes frozen beneath moonlight, across forest paths lined with whispering pines, across towns where the last lights had just been extinguished, and wherever it passed, a feeling of quiet assurance remained. The comforting sense that the world, despite its cold and distance, still held gentle things. After a while, the bell allowed its chime to fade into a softer hum, not stopping completely, but resting, as though catching its breath while the world below surrendered fully to sleep. The clouds shifted around it, creating a cradle of pale gray that held the bell tenderly, and the breeze curled around its surface, whispering through the small metal curve, as if thanking it for the peace it had given. The bell swayed slowly, settling into the rhythm of the sleeping world, and it thought, not in words, but in the deep, resonant way only ancient things can think, that all it needed to do was continue being here, continue offering its soft song each Christmas Eve, because someone, somewhere, would always need the reminder that rest was possible, that peace was near, that a quiet moment could be enough to carry them into a gentler tomorrow. And so the bell hung there, suspended above the clouds, bathed in moonlight and silence, watching as the world below drifted deeper into the warmth of sleep. And its final chime for the night slipped softly into the air like a blessing carried on the wind, though the sound was faint, almost invisible. It lingered long after it left the bell, settling beside every heart that had felt it, becoming part of their dreams, part of their comfort. And now, as the story drifts toward you, brushing lightly against the edges of your thoughts, the bell's unseen chime hovers gently over your mind as well, wrapping itself around your breath, letting your body settle a little deeper, letting the quiet in your chest grow a little softer, reminding you that even if you cannot see the source of comfort, it is still there, still reaching you, still ringing softly each time you close your eyes, and that tonight, like every Christmas Eve before it, the world has made room for your peace. In the endless white expanse of the North Pole, where snow drifted like gentle feathers across quiet fields and the air shimmered with the pale glow of northern lights, there lived a young reindeer named Coco, a timid little one with soft, snowy fur that blended so perfectly into the winter landscape that he often looked like a small cloud resting on the ground. And although he belonged to a herd known for their bravery and swift flights across the Christmas sky, Coco spent most of his days lingering at the edges, watching the others practice soaring through the icy winds with confidence, wishing quietly that he could feel even a fraction of that courage inside himself. Yet Coco's gentle heart noticed things the other reindeer rarely paid attention to. The way the snowflakes spun slowly before they touched the ground. The way the stars blinked softly like sleepy eyes settling into dreams. the way the polar winds whispered calming tunes that sounded like lullabies drifting through the sky. And though he never said a word, Coco loved these quiet details more than the excitement of flying fast or pulling heavy loads. As Christmas approached, the herd grew busier each day, practicing their formations, strengthening their legs, and preparing themselves for the grand journey ahead. While Coco watched from a snowy ridge, feeling a mixture of admiration and a small ache of longing, not because he wanted glory, but because a little part of him hoped there might be a place in the world where his gentle nature could be useful. And that hope stirred gently inside him on Christmas Eve, when Santa, dressed in warm red and surrounded by soft lantern light, realized that among the many large presents ready to be delivered, there was also a tiny bag of gifts meant for children who slept lightly. Children whose dreams fluttered like delicate wings and could not be disturbed by the thunderous steps or powerful breaths of the larger reindeer. Santa looked at the strong herd before him, their antlers tall and proud. But then his gaze drifted toward the snowy edge where Coco stood quietly, half hidden in the glow of the moon. And with a gentle smile, Santa approached him, laying a warm, gloved hand on Coco's shoulder and telling him in a deep, comforting voice that this mission needed someone who moved softly, someone who understood the fragile world of sleeping children, someone who could fly without stirring the night. And Coco felt his heart expand with a warmth that crowded out some of his fear. Though his legs trembled slightly as the small bag of gifts was tied to him, he also felt something glowing inside. A courage not loud or fierce, but warm and steady, rising from a part of him he had never known was strong. When Coco lifted into the air, guided by the gentle magic that lived beneath Christmas stars, he flew slowly at first, unsure of his wings, but the night seemed to cradle him kindly, the clouds parting like soft blankets, and the wind carrying him with a touch so tender that Coco felt as though the sky had been waiting for him all along. And as he glided above the first quiet village, seeing the rooftops sparkling with frost and the windows glowing like sleepy eyes, something inside him settled, a peacefulness that washed over him like warm light. And for the first time in his life, Coco felt unafraid. He landed lightly on each roof, placing gifts with a carefulness that came naturally to him, imagining the children inside stirring gently in their dreams. And with every house he visited, Coco felt the world growing more beautiful, as though the stillness of the night had wrapped him in a gentle embrace. He began to fly with a grace so soft it was almost invisible, like a quiet breath drifting through the air. And the more he flew, the more he felt a joy blooming inside him, a joy that whispered that he belonged to the night sky, just as much as any other reindeer. Above sleeping villages and snow-covered hills, Coco drifted like a wandering dream, his fear dissolving with every passing heartbeat, replaced by wonder, tenderness, and a growing certainty that he had found his place, not among the loud or the bold, but among the gentle moments of the world, the ones that happened while others slept. And by the time he finished delivering every gift in the little bag, the night had transformed Coco completely, filling him with a quiet courage that had always been waiting beneath his timid heart. When he returned to the North Pole, Santa welcomed him with a proud smile, calling him the reindeer of peaceful dreams, the guardian of soft sleep, and Coco, glowing with a warmth brighter than any star, understood that he had indeed become something special. He had become the bringer of gentle dreams, the silent friend who watched over sleeping children, the soft heartbeat of Christmas night. In the far, quiet corner of Santa's workshop, where the warm lantern light softened every shadow and the wooden floor held the gentle echoes of centuries of footsteps, there sat a small box unlike any other. A box carved from pale northern wood and wrapped in a simple ribbon that never wore out. And though it looked plain compared to the shimmering gifts piled high on Santa's shelves, this little box carried a mystery so quiet and so tender that only Santa himself understood its meaning. The box, when opened, revealed nothing at all. No toy, no trinket, not even a folded note. Just empty space, still and calm, the kind of emptiness that felt more like a soft breath than a void. An emptiness that had been created long ago for a purpose no one could quite explain until they felt it for themselves. Santa had discovered through many winters and countless Christmas Eves that the world carried a kind of weight that no gift could fully erase. A weight made not of objects, but of thoughts, of worries that curled in the corners of the mind, of the quiet heaviness that people held behind their smiles. And so, one night long ago, he crafted the little box with his own hands, carving it slowly while snow tapped gently against the windows, filling the empty space inside. Not with an object, but with something softer, something invisible. Peace. The kind that came from stillness. The kind that settled gently into a weary heart like a warm hand resting on tired shoulders. Over the years, Santa learned that this box was meant for those who carried too much, for the children who whispered their fears into the dark, for the adults who held long breaths in their chest without realizing it, for the souls who needed not a toy or a treat, but a moment where the world felt lighter. And so the box remained in the workshop until the right person needed it, its emptiness glowing faintly in the lantern light, its silence holding a comfort deeper than words. On this Christmas Eve, as snow drifted softly in slow spirals outside the window and the stars blinked gently above the painted sky, Santa felt the weight of the night settle onto his shoulders. Not heavy, but meaningful. And he walked to the shelf where the little box waited, brushing his gloved fingers along its smooth surface, sensing the quiet warmth that lived within its emptiness, a warmth that felt like a slow exhale after a long day. He picked it up with both hands, handling it with the respect he might show to something fragile and alive, and he tied the ribbon a little tighter, not to hide anything, but to honor the invisible gift inside. Far away across snowy towns and sleeping villages, there were hearts tonight that felt heavier than usual. Hearts that lay awake beneath blankets, wishing for a moment of calm, wishing for something they could not name. And Santa knew that one of those hearts would find comfort in this simple, empty box. And so, as he set off on his journey, soaring above rooftops with the gentle sweep of reindeer wings, He kept the box close, waiting for the quiet moment when it would know where it belonged. In a small house at the edge of a forest, where the wind brushed softly against frosted windows and the rooms held the faint warmth of a slowly dying fire, a child lay awake, eyes half closed but mind still full, thoughts drifting in tangled shapes that made sleep feel far away. Santa landed silently on the roof, his footsteps light as falling snow. And as he stepped inside, he felt the hush of the house wrap around him like a sigh. He approached the small bed, saw the child curled beneath the blankets with a tiny crease between the eyebrows, the kind of crease that came not from sadness, but from thinking too much for a small heart. And Santa smiled softly, placing the little box beside the pillow. The ribbon shimmered faintly in the dark, and though the box looked empty, the air around it warmed, as though the peace inside had begun to breathe. When the child, stirring in half-dream, reached out and pulled the box close, holding it against their chest, the invisible gift flowed gently into them, loosening the tightness in their thoughts, softening the small knots of worry, replacing them with a quiet space where sleep could enter without fear. And as Santa stepped back into the night, closing the door behind him with a soft click, he felt the familiar warmth in his chest, knowing the box had found someone who needed it. Across the world, Santa continued his journey, but the memory of the child holding that empty box stayed with him, reminding him that not every gift needed to be seen to be felt, that sometimes what the heart truly needed was not an object, but a moment of calm, a breath of quiet, a space to rest. And as the night deepened, Santa looked at the stars above him, feeling the same peace he had carved into the empty box long ago, a peace that still whispered through the world each Christmas Eve, reminding those who held it close that they were allowed to let go, that they were allowed to rest, that even emptiness could cradle them like a lullaby, soft and warm, high above the quiet winter sky, where the soft layers of clouds drifted like slow-moving pillows and the stars shimmered with a gentle silver glow. There lived a little snow girl named Lumiela, a tiny being made of delicate frost who spent her days curled inside a small cloud shaped almost like a cradle. And every Christmas, she would lean over the cloud's edge and release hundreds of soft, shimmering snowflakes into the world below, each flake drifting downward like a sleepy dream carried on the hush of winter. Lumiela adored this task, for she believed snow was a gift of tenderness, a reminder to the world that silence could be beautiful and that stillness could soothe tired hearts. Yet one year, filled with excitement and eagerness, she released far more snow than she had ever done before. And as she watched her flakes fall thickly over fields, homes, forests, and winding roads, her small frost heart trembled with worry, for she feared that she had covered the world too deeply, that the snow she meant as comfort would become a burden, cold and heavy on those she wished to bring peace to. As the night deepened and the moon rose higher, shining like a lantern of calm above the sleeping earth, Lumiela curled into her cloud, hugging her knees, feeling the swirl of anxiety settle over her like an icy layer she could not shake off. And she whispered apologies into the wind, asking the night to forgive her eagerness. But the wind did not scold her, nor did it turn away, for drifting nearby was a gentle breeze known as whisper wind, the softest wind in all the winter sky, who blew not to push or scatter, but to comfort, to warm, to balance what the world could not balance on its own. And Whisper Wind had been watching the little snow girl with quiet affection for many winters, admiring the tenderness she poured into every snowflake. Seeing her curled in worry, Whisper Wind drifted closer, wrapping around her cloud like a warm, airy embrace, speaking in a voice that felt less like sound and more like a calm touch on the heart, telling her that the world did not fear her snow, that even if she had released too much, nothing was beyond gentle correction, and that no mistake made with love was ever too heavy to soften. Lumiella peeked out from her cloud, her frosty eyelashes sparkling, and asked in a trembling whisper if she had made the world too cold, too bright, too buried under her snowfall. But Whisper Wind only smiled, if a breeze could smile, and nuzzled her cheek with a warm current, assuring her that he would help lighten the snow, melting just enough for the earth to breathe while keeping the soft white blanket she had lovingly created. Together they drifted across the winter sky, Lumiella sprinkling the last tiny snowflakes she held gently in her hands, while Whisper Wind followed close beside her, warming the fields and rooftops with a tender touch that softened the snow without taking away its magic. And as they moved, the world below settled into a perfect balance. White, but not harsh. Cold, but not bitter. Quiet, but not lonely. Because every place they passed felt the harmony of the girl who loved too much and the wind who held everything gently. Lumiella watched as paths reappeared beneath the softened snow, as tree branches lifted under the lighter weight, as warm lamplight glowed more clearly through frosted windows. And she felt her worry fade, replaced by a feeling warm and bright, a feeling Whisper Wind had always hoped she would discover. Trust, not only in herself but in the world that cared for her just as she cared for it. And Whisper Wind, drifting beside her, felt something of his own shift, a deeper fondness settling into his breeze, for he realized that Lumiella, with her fragile kindness, had brought softness into the sky in a way he alone never could. As dawn approached and the moon dipped slowly toward the horizon, Lumiella returned to her tiny cloud, no longer curling in on herself, but stretching out like someone whose heart had found space to breathe again. And Whisper Wind wrapped around her one last time before drifting off to guide the morning winds, promising he would always be near, always ready to help her find balance whenever she felt unsure. And Lumiella, watching him fade into the pale light, whispered a soft thank you that shimmered like frost in the air, understanding for the first time that she did not need to be perfect, that she did not need to carry every worry alone, because somewhere in the vast sky, a gentle wind was always listening, always ready to hold her when she felt too small. And as the world below awakened beneath a sky painted in soft winter colors, the snow lay quiet and warm, shaped not only by Lumiella's loving hands, but by Whisper Wind's tender touch. And in that perfect harmony, the earth slept a little easier, breathed a little deeper, and drifted closer to the kind of peace that only comes when two gentle souls learn to balance the world together. On a quiet winter night, when Christmas approached with its gentle hush and the world slowed into a soft, shimmering stillness, the moon rose higher than usual, glowing not with its ordinary silver light, but with a warm, tender brightness that felt almost like a breath of comfort drifting softly across the sky. And people who glanced upward that night felt something inside them loosen, something small and tired in their hearts settling into calm, as though the moon itself were touching them with a whisper. For on Christmas Eve, the moon was said to awaken a deeper magic, a quiet gift it offered only once a year, the gift of whispering into dreams, not with loud words or glowing visions, but with the softest messages of peace, kindness, and rest. That night, as houses dimmed their lights and windows glowed faintly behind curtains drawn close against the cold, the moon looked down upon the sleeping world with the tenderness of an old friend, noticing how some people fell asleep easily, their breaths slow and warm under blankets, while others lay awake a little longer, their thoughts lingering in loops, their hearts carrying small weights they never spoke aloud. And the moon, seeing all of this from its high, quiet throne, began to lower its glow, softening the silver light until it shimmered like warm frost. And with that gentle touch, it extended a whisper, a delicate ripple of calm that drifted downward like a feather falling in the slow air. The whisper was not heard with ears, but felt within the stillness behind closed eyes. A soft voice that said, "Rest now. You have carried enough for today." And as the moonlight brushed against the eyelids of a child curled beneath a heavy blanket, the child's breath deepened into peaceful rhythm, the kind that only comes when the night itself feels safe. The moon continued to watch over the rooftops, sending another whisper to a woman sitting by her window with a cup of warm cocoa cradled between her hands, her mind swirling with thoughts that would not settle. And the light touched her face gently, encouraging her to release the day, letting her shoulders soften as she finally closed her eyes. Farther away, in a small cabin tucked beneath tall pines where snow wrapped the world in near silence, an old man sat in his rocking chair, remembering years that had slipped behind him like footprints disappearing in snow. And though his heart felt heavy, the moonlight reached through the frosted glass and settled on his hands, bringing warmth to the ache he carried, reminding him that even in solitude there were still moments of tenderness waiting to be felt. He leaned back with a soft sigh, his eyes drifting shut as the whisper of the moon told him that he had done enough, that the night would hold him for a while. As the hours passed, the moon continued its tender work, drifting its glow across the world in long, slow strokes, smoothing the sharp edges of worry, soothing the small tremors of fear, and guiding tired minds toward rest. It shimmered over forests where animals curled into nests of warmth, over rivers frozen into silent mirrors, over towns wrapped in snow. And each time its glow touched something or someone, a quiet calm settled like a blanket of gentle stillness. High above the world, the moon felt a soft satisfaction, not the pride of something grand, but the contentment of something deeply needed. for it understood that its role was not to dazzle the night, but to cradle it, to soften darkness with warmth rather than brightness, to remind the earth that peace was still possible even in the coldest seasons. And so, with each whispered blessing, the moon felt itself becoming lighter, as though giving comfort made its own heart glow a little brighter. Somewhere in the city, a young girl fell asleep beside a window after watching the moon for so long that her eyelids drooped from their own tired weight. And just before she drifted into dreams, she imagined the moon speaking to her, telling her that tomorrow would be gentle, that she did not need to worry about the things she could not yet understand. And when her dreams finally opened like soft curtains, she stepped into them with a peace she had rarely known. The moon continued to whisper until the edge of dawn began to glow faintly on the horizon. And as the first colors of morning touched the sky, the moon slowly faded, not disappearing entirely, but pulling its light back like someone tucking a blanket around a child before stepping quietly out of the room. And in its final whisper of the night, it told the world to rest a little deeper, to breathe a little softer, to trust that gentle things still existed even when unseen. And now, as you listen to this story and feel your breath slowing, your eyelids growing heavier beneath the soft rhythm of your heartbeat, the moon's whisper reaches you as well, brushing lightly across your thoughts, inviting you to rest, telling you in a voice softer than a sigh that you are safe tonight, that sleep can come without fear, and that tomorrow, with all its unknowns, will meet you with kindness if you let your heart drift peacefully into the quiet of this winter night. In the quiet stretch of a winter forest, where the trees stood tall and still beneath layers of soft snow, and the winds carried only the faintest whisper of their cold breath, a tiny bird named Philo found himself alone, separated from his flock after a sudden gust had scattered the small group across the pale sky. And though Philo's wings beat bravely against the night, he felt the weight of the cold sinking deeper into his feathers with every passing moment. He had never flown without the warmth of his family, never searched for shelter on his own. And as the world around him blurred into swirls of white, he feared that he would be swallowed by the vastness of winter before he found a place to rest. The forest below offered no comfort, its branches heavy with frost, its silence thick enough to make his little heart flutter anxiously. So Philo continued to fly, his wings trembling with exhaustion, until at last a faint glow appeared in the distance, a warm flicker in the shape of a golden droplet suspended in the darkness. And as he drew closer, he realized it was a candle flame sitting on a windowsill inside a small, snow-covered cottage. The flame danced softly, pulsing with warmth, and Philo felt something loosen in his chest, a tiny spark of hope urging him to press forward. He landed on the sill with barely enough strength to stand, his tiny claws shivering against the wood, and he leaned toward the window, letting the warmth of the candle seep gently into his cold wings. And in that moment, the world no longer felt so vast or frightening. Inside the cottage, a family was gathering for Christmas Eve, their voices a soft murmur wrapped in the glow of candlelight. And when the youngest child noticed Philo perched outside, she gasped and rushed to the door, drawing her parents' attention with excited whispers. The door opened with a slow creak, allowing a wave of warm air to spill into the cold night, and the family stepped onto the porch, their eyes soft with concern as they looked at the trembling bird. The mother extended her hands, palms open and patient, offering a safe place without forcing it. And after a hesitant moment, Philo hopped gently into her warmth, feeling the tension in his wings melt away as she carried him inside. The cottage was filled with gentle light, the kind that made shadows drift softly along the walls, and the heat from the fireplace wrapped around Philo like a cozy blanket, soothing the ache in his tiny body. The father prepared a small dish of crumbs, placing it slowly near the bird so as not to startle him, while the children sat at a respectful distance, watching him with wide, tender eyes as though they had been entrusted with the care of something fragile and precious. Philo ate slowly, his hunger easing with each tiny bite. And when he finally lifted his head, he looked around the room, noticing the evergreen branches hung above the mantel, the stockings lined neatly along the wall, and the soft glow of Christmas lights reflecting off ornaments that shimmered like little stars. He felt, for the first time since becoming lost, that he was safe, that the winter night could not reach him here. As the family settled into the quiet rituals of the evening, soft songs, warm stories, gentle laughter, Philo nestled himself beside the window, tucking his beak beneath his wing as the candle flame flickered beside him, its warm glow resting on his feathers like a promise. And though he could still hear the wind brushing against the house, it no longer sounded sharp or lonely, but distant and harmless, like a reminder of a world he no longer needed to fear. Through the glass, Philo watched the snowfall soften into a peaceful rhythm, each flake drifting downward as though moving to the music of the night. And he felt sleep approach, slow and gentle, wrapping around him as tenderly as the warmth of the house had wrapped around his small body. The family moved quietly so as not to disturb him, lowering their voices, dimming the lights, letting the stillness of Christmas settle into every corner of the room. And as Philo drifted into dreams, he realized something he had never understood before. That warmth was not only found in feathers pressed close together, or in the shelter of thick branches, but in the kindness of strangers who opened their doors, in the glow of a candle that guided him home, in the feeling of being held gently after being lost for so long. And when dawn approached and the sky began to brighten with soft shades of blue and rose, Philo opened his eyes to find the world outside calm and clear, no longer a swirling storm, but a place touched by the quiet magic of Christmas. Though he knew he would soon return to his flock, he lingered for a moment, letting gratitude settle deep in his tiny heart. Before he flew away, he chirped a small, warm note toward the family, a thank you carried on the soft morning air, knowing that he would never forget this cottage or the warmth it had given him, the warmth that had taught him that Christmas was more than celebration, more than lights or songs, but a place where one could feel safe, even when lost, and a reminder that sometimes a single open door is enough to bring someone home. In the deepest part of Christmas night, when the world grows impossibly still, and even the wind slows into a gentle, wandering sigh. There comes a moment so quiet and delicate that it seems the entire sky is holding its breath, waiting for something soft to unfold. And it is in this moment, just after midnight, when the snow settles into a calm shimmer and the moon hangs like a slow heartbeat above the sleeping earth, that a silent magic appears. A magic so subtle that no one has ever seen it with open eyes. Yet everyone has felt it without knowing. It moves like a thin ribbon of warmth drifting through cold air, slipping through closed windows and resting on the minds of those who have finally set down their worries for the day, touching them with a softness that feels like a hand smoothing the creases of their thoughts. This magic does not sparkle or glow, does not rush across rooftops or swirl through chimneys, but glides with patience, weaving itself between breaths, finding spaces untouched by noise or fear. And wherever it touches, something small shifts. Eyelids grow heavier, shoulders loosen as though released from an invisible weight, and hearts, tired from carrying the quiet burdens of the year, begin to settle into a slower, calmer rhythm. It is said that even the stars dim slightly when this magic arrives, as if bowing respectfully to the quietness it brings, knowing that silence is sometimes more powerful than any shining light. On this Christmas night, the magic drifted across snowy hills where animals slept curled beneath branches, across small towns whose streets glowed faintly under lanterns left burning low, and across lonely cabins perched at the edges of forests, where only the crackling of dying embers interrupted the stillness. And as it passed each place, it carried with it the deep understanding that rest is not a luxury, but a gift, one that the world offers freely when the night grows gentle enough. In a warm room lit only by the dim glow of a fading candle, a woman who had spent the year running faster than her heart could keep up finally felt her breath slow, the magic settling over her like a soft blanket made of quiet reassurance. She did not see it, but she felt her thoughts soften, the day fading from her mind as though lifted by invisible hands, and she eased into sleep with a sense of peace she had forgotten she deserved. Far away, in a house nestled beneath a snowy roof, a child stirred in bed, fighting the dreams that fluttered anxiously around the edges of sleep. But when the silent magic brushed against his forehead, the tension melted from his tiny features, and he drifted into a deep, steady slumber, as if the night itself had whispered, "You are safe." In the city, where even winter nights often hummed with distant motion, the magic moved through apartments filled with unfinished thoughts and unspoken fears, and those who lay awake staring at ceilings. They knew too well felt their breaths deepen, the quiet washing over them until their minds leaned softly into rest. And though none of them knew why sleep found them so gently on this night, they all surrendered to it, trusting the softness that had arrived unannounced. The magic continued its slow journey, floating above frozen rivers, slipping through pine forests, touching rooftops, drifting along snowy fields lit by moonlight. And with each place it passed, the world seemed to exhale, as if releasing a year's worth of heaviness into the sky. It was not a magic that fixed everything, but one that held everything, gathering the weight of countless thoughts and letting them dissolve into the stillness of the night. Above it all, the stars shimmered like lanterns, waiting patiently for dawn. But even they seemed quieter, casting softer light, as though not wishing to disturb the fragile peace the magic was weaving through the world. And as the night moved toward its deepest point, the magic grew even gentler, slowing into a hum that could not be heard, but could be felt in the steady heartbeat of the earth. And now, as you listen to this story, as your breath slows without effort and your eyelids settle gently as though filled with the softest snow, the same silent magic touches you too, resting lightly on your thoughts, easing the tired corners of your mind, reminding you with a voice quieter than a whisper that you have done enough for today, that you may set everything down without fear. It tells you that sleep is not an escape, but a returning, a warm step into a place where your heart can breathe again. And as you drift closer to the edge of dreams, the magic wraps around you like a calm embrace, guiding you into the deep, tender rest that awaits you on this peaceful Christmas night. As Christmas night drifts toward its quietest hour, while the stories you have just wandered through still linger like soft trails of light in your mind, gentle and warm as a slow breath, the whole world begins to sink into a deeper peace. And it is in this moment, when every sound grows faint, when the final heartbeats of the day settle like mist, that your body, too, can allow itself to be carried into the calm embrace of the night. Outside the window, the winter wind brushes across rooftops in a distant whisper. Not sharp or cold, but humming an ancient lullaby the earth has kept for nights like this. And here in your room, the warmth still resting on your skin begins to ease into your muscles, letting your shoulders drop, your eyes soften, and your heart loosen everything it held tightly through the passing hours. If you listen gently, slowly, you'll notice something shifting in your breath, as though each exhale carries away a small, invisible weight you no longer need, and each inhale brings in a thin layer of warmth from the night. Warmth not from lamps or blankets, but from the quiet tenderness of Christmas itself. A tenderness that asks for nothing, demands nothing, but simply tells you that you are safe. All the stories you've journeyed through, the wandering star, the patient tree, the unsent letter, the ember lamp, the shy reindeer, the empty box, the snow girl, the whispering moon, the lost bird, and the silent magic, now settle inside you like tiny lights sinking beneath soft snow, not fading but becoming part of the warmth that gathers around your mind. Each story has left a piece of calm behind, a small message, a gentle touch, and together they form a blanket made not of fabric but of feelings, wrapping around you so that you no longer need to hold on to anything at all. You don't need to think anymore, don't need to remember, don't need to try. Sleep is already approaching, slowly, kindly, like an old friend entering the room without wanting to startle you. You only need to let your eyelids become just a little heavier, your breathing just a little deeper, your body just a little softer, and the rest will happen on its own. Tonight, The whole world is sleeping, and you have permission to sleep with it, to let your heart stop wandering, to let your thoughts stop circling, to let the things left unfinished wait for tomorrow. Because Christmas is not just light and celebration, it is permission whispered gently, telling you that you may rest, that you may let yourself soften, that you may lay down what has been too heavy for too long, and then sleep will arrive the way snow falls, quiet, slow, certain, touching you without force, settling on you without weight. And you won't have to chase it, only to allow it to come close. And when the silent magic of this Christmas night reaches you, you will feel your eyes closing without effort, your breath flowing like a warm current, and your whole being becoming lighter, as though you finally set down a burden you never meant to carry. So now, let every sound drift away from you. Let the stories stay behind like the first layer of a dream just beginning. And let yourself slide gently into the night like a leaf carried by calm water. You are safe. You are held. And you are being guided into a deep, warm, peaceful sleep. The kind of sleep meant only for you on this quiet Christmas night.